Hey everyone, my name is Micah Blake, owner of Speaking Music, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about an awesome trick that I stole from a guitarist and I use for piano, and I think bass players would enjoy it so much. So before they catch up to me, take a look at it right after this. So the trick that I've been using for keyboard for years, kind of taught to me by guitarists, is called power chords. Now, what power chords are is a basic chord pattern. I'll show you right here. And what is really nice about it is it opens up the chord so it's not major or minor, so it fits in really well and kind of like is a good overall pattern to play. Also, it's really nice for learning your fretboard, which I'll show you on bass in just a sec. How do we actually play a power chord? We're going to be playing the exact same fingering for every single one. So I use my index finger. I don't use my middle finger. I use my ring finger, and I use my pinky. So those three fingers. My one finger, my index finger, goes on a string. Right here, I'm having it on G. We skip the next fret, and then the next two fingers go on the next two strings. Now with this, we're only playing 3 strings, so we're only going to play those. We don't play the whole thing like that, because it sounds really bad. So we just play those 3 strings. Now this would be a nice, pretty way to play it. But what I've been using it for as a pianist is the fact that when you start getting lower in the frequencies, sometimes, especially if you're playing with some big speakers in a big auditorium or something, it sounds really muddy. And all the notes kind of blend together, especially if you're playing like triads, which are notes really close together. How keyboardists play them a lot. And if you're playing that really low down, it's going to sound really muddy and it kind of just sound like one big blur. Now, it just doesn't sound good, and it's something that I tried to stay away from, but I wanted to still play low and play a lot of notes. So I started using this pattern, and that is exactly what a power chord is on what guitarists play. Now, I'll play this all the time. You can play it any different pattern, just those 3 notes, back and forth, or just the notes on the top after that. There's just so many different things you can do with it, and you can go low, you can play it high and it'll still sound good. But another beautiful thing about this is, like I said before, doesn't matter if it's major or minor anymore. The 1 and the 5 are the same for every major and minor chord. So it doesn't matter if I'm playing a C major or a C minor here, because right here, my finger is just playing a C power chord, which is not major or minor. And so if you're a little bit unsure, a lot of people are quite unsure with their left hand playing the right notes, you start playing power chords and it adds so much more than just playing octaves or something. Because also you can't do that much rhythm with octaves. It's like that or this but once you add that extra note in, you can do so much more. It sounds really good. So I do this all the time on piano, and it gets me thinking. A lot of times when I was playing with my band, I asked my bass player why he didn't do it, and pretty much he hadn't been shown or knew that it was a good thing to do. All right, so this is a bass. It's very similar to a guitar. Literally, these 4 strings are an octave lower than the low strings on a guitar. So a lot of bass players will be playing, especially if you're playing very rhythmic stuff where, you're just hitting a note over and over, and you may be moving around, but if you want to add some variation in there, you do the exact same thing that chord pattern for a power chord, which is your 1 finger here, your 3 and 4 finger there, and you can do this anywhere on this string or this string. Obviously, you can't do it lower or else you're actually falling off the fretboard. So any of those 2 strings, and the power chord that it is playing is whatever your index finger is on. So this is an E string. So E, F, F sharp, G. If I did it here, this would be a G power chord. If I go up to here, it's A. If this is an A string, so A sharp, B, C. If I'm right here, this would be a C power chord. And you can do the exact same patterns that I was doing on the piano. So you can just go, or back and forth. There's so many different variations you do, but you don't have to move your fingers around a ton. You just throw it in that one position and play those notes. So there are so many things you can do just by adding that. So if you're a bass player and you've only been playing like a month, very beginner bass player, probably learning the notes on these 2 strings. Those are your first 2 that you typically learn anyway. Now you can add a ton of variation in without learning anything new at all. Just this one pattern. And if it says a G minor 7 chord, you can just play this. And it doesn't matter what the rest of it says. You can just add this in and it should work with most of the other instruments in the band. So that's a little trick, like I said, that I stole from guitarists. And if you're a bass player or keyboard player, I hope you take advantage of it because the rest of the band will thank you and you'll have so much more things that you can experiment with. So I do a lot of tips and tricks like this on this channel. It's for musicians or teachers. So once again, if you're a teacher, totally be teaching your students this. Little tricks like this help them out a ton. So if you're interested in more, just hit subscribe and that little bell to get the notifications. And I will see you next week.